The next agile framework that we are going to discuss is Kanban or Agile Teams. So, Kanban is a visual workflow management system that helps agile teams to optimize the efficiency, reduces the waste, and maintain continuous flow of the work. The word Kanban originates from Toyota manufacturing system, where visual signals were used to improve the production efficiency. Kanban is now widely adopted in agile software development, also IT operation and project management to ensure a steady flow of the deliverables without overloading the team. Unlike traditional project management, which focuses on fixed phases, if you recall when we discussing the waterfall methodology, we have the initiation, the planning, the execution, the monitoring and controlling, finally closing. Kanban allows work to progress dynamically, making it ideal for teams managing continuous tasks or unpredictable workloads. And the key principles of Kanban first is to visualize work, limiting the work on progress, and managing the flow, and making process policies explicit, and implementing feedback loops, and finally, with the collaboration. And to discuss each of them in more in depth. So Kanban is guided by these six core principles, which helps the teams to improve the efficiency and the adaptability. And to start with the first principle, when we say the to visualize the work, teams uses Kanban boards to display tasks and their status. Example, in case there's a software development team who's using Jira boards or Jira platform to track the tasks from the backlog to completion. The next principle here we have is to limit work in progress, which is a very critical principles that it can, let's say, make the project fail if you don't maintain it well. It works by controlling the number of active tasks, which is on the ongoing phase. So by controlling the number of active tasks, it will prevent the overload and ensures the focus on certain tasks. An example here where a support team might limit the active tickets to five maybe per agent to maintain high quality service. The third principle is to manage the flow by tracking how the work moves through different stages, also by identifying the bottlenecks within your processes. The fourth principle here is to make process policies explicit by having the teams to define clear roles of the task prioritization, workflows, the workflow stages, and the completion criteria. So you ensure that each of the tasks has, let's say, a clear rules or clear criteria before moving it, for example, from, let's say, to do to on progress or testing or completed. So with having a clear rules, clear, let's say, workflow stages, criteria, then you ensures that you have a well-defined process and you ensure that each of these tasks are completed in, let's say, in a complete or effective way. The fifth principle here is to implement feedback loops by the teams holding daily stand-ups and retrospectives to improve the efficiency. Finally, we have the sixth principle is to improve the collaboration by continuous improvement, the continuous improvement framework, which is known as Kaizen, whereas the key focus here of Kanban. These principles help agile teams to maximize the efficiency while maintaining flexibility. Now let's look at the components or the Kanban, let's say, board structure and components. So, Kanban board is primarily tool used to visualize the work and to track the progress, and it consists of columns where these columns represent different workflows. For example, you have to do, you also have in progress. You might also integrate a new workflow, which maybe you have some testing phase where you need to add some of these features, some of these tickets, some of these say tasks to be tested before it's marked as done or completed. We also have the work items cards where the tasks represented with let's say details like the owner of the task, due date of that task, also the priority based on the, let's say, stakeholders or based on the management prioritization, and urgency and impact on overall project goals. Also have the work in progress limit, where it restrict, as I mentioned, as the second principle, where it restrict the number of tasks in each column to prevent the bottlenecks. For example, you have an IT service desk where it uses Kanban board to track maybe the incidents from reported to resolved, ensuring a steady workflows. Also have the swimlances where the categories works. It categorizes these work or tasks based on its priority, project type, and the team ownership. The key differences between Kanban and Scrum here, although both Kanban and Scrum supports agile teams, they operate differently. And by operating in different ways, so let's now understand the key aspect in terms of Kanban and Scrum. So when it comes to Kanban, the process flow, Kanban has a continuous workflow, but Scrum is a time boxed sprints. 2 weeks, 4 weeks, it depends on the sprint goal. When it comes to the role aspect, Kanban has no defined roles. But when it comes to Scrum, Scrum has the Scrum Master, product owner, and the development team. The work limitation in terms of Kanban has a principle where you need to limit the work in progress, which is the WIP limits. Scrum Scrum has when it comes to the work limitation, it has the sprint backlog where you take only a certain number of user stories from the product backlog and you set it the sprint backlog to be worked on. Kanban, in terms of change handling, it can Kanban can can change the task anytime based on the management, based on the stakeholder, based on the priority, based on, let's say, the urgency of these tasks. But when it comes to Scrum, Scrum has fixed sprint scope. So once the sprint started, you cannot just change, let's say, the requirements until you have maybe a direction from the product owner to make the sprint absolute. And having an sprint absolute meaning stop the sprint and to, let's say, to redo all of the product backlog and to choose again the sprint backlog items. So again, once the sprint starts, or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, if the sprint has a fixed sprint scope where to achieve the sprint goal. In case if you have any direction from the product backlog to make the sprint absolute and then can, let's say, cancel the sprint. And the best use of Kanban where there's a continuous work, for example, maybe IT support, all of these tickets, all of these, ways, visualize the work. When it comes to Scrum, Scrum has best use of Scrum when there is an iterative development, maybe software development or product teams. So this is how um, let's say you let's say implement best cases of each of these framework. An example here we have the DevOps team. Whereas maybe Kanban because it has ongoing deployments, while the product team uses Scrum for incremental software releases. How to track Kanban metrics and performance measurements. So Kanban teams uses key metrics to measure the and improve the efficiency of the workflows by having the lead time. And the lead time here, it means the total time from task request to complete. Means the lead time here when task is being added to the do list until it goes to the complete let's say stage. So this is the lead time. Also, they measure it based on the cycle time, and the cycle time, it's time taken to complete a task after the work begins. The throughput here is the number of completed tasks in a given period. Think of the velocity in Scrum, where it has a certain number of user stories that have been completed. Also, Kanban team uses the cumulative flow diagrams to visualize the work distribution across different stages. How to implement Kanban in agile teams? So Steps to implement Kanban in agile teams. You need to start with first mapping the existing workflows and then designing a visual Kanban board where you set all of these stages of the flow of your team, and then sets the work in progress limits and workflow policies. You remember when we talked about the workflow policies, when a task is marked as completed, when the criteria is being set to each of these tasks, for example, to move from development phase maybe to complete or to test phase, each of these tasks has to have this criteria before moving it from a stage to other stage. Also, the last step here is to monitor the work progress and adapt continuously. Common challenges that you might face when having, let's say, implementing Kanban with Agile is overloading the team. And how to avoid overloading the team with many tasks is, as I mentioned, is to adjust the work in progress limits by having by understanding the team limits and setting these to-do list or the work on progress limits to let's say to match the team capability and efforts. One of also these challenges including the lack of visibility. How you overcome this by improving the board structure to make everything visual and transparent to the team stakeholders. One of these challenges also is the task dependencies and how to let's say overcome this challenge is by using the swim lenses to um, the swim lanes to categorize the task. As I mentioned, that you need to assess the priority, the urgency, the impact of these tasks to be prioritized. Let's now look at one of these real world example in Kanban. We have a hospital who have an IT department who implemented Kanban to manage the software updates and security patches, and they achieved 30% faster in incident resolution and having a better workload management through the WIP limits or work in progress limit and enhance the visibility for the stakeholders. So this showcases the Kanban effectiveness in dynamic environment. What are the best practices for utilizing Kanban in agile teams? So the best practices for having a successful Kanban adoption by first understanding the needs of the stakeholders and keeping the workflow simple and transparent to these stakeholders. Also, by having a regular review on the work on progress limit based on the team capacity or the team velocity. By encouraging the collaboration and feedback loops, you keep enhancing the Kanban workflows. So you need to balance the flexibility and control, having a continuous monitoring and refinement. These are some of the common pitfalls that you might face when implementing Kanban. So mistakes teams can make when adopting Kanban, including the ignoring the work on progress limit, which leads to task overload, having many tasks ongoing. We'll see it in more in depth when it comes to to control the work on progress and what would be the let's say the challenges, what would be the impact of having or ignoring the work in progress limit. Also, the lack of commitment from the stakeholders, which might sometimes cause implementation failures. And there's no continuous improvement. So the teams should have a regular review of the Kanban efficiency. Maybe if you have faced an issue during one of these project implementation and you face that there's workflow or a new stage that it need to be implemented within your Kanban board, and ignoring these changes, it can, let's say, reduce the efficiency of your work. And to summarize our session on Kanban, Kanban again is a powerful agile tool for teams who needs the flexibility, the transparency, and continuous workflow management. By following Kanban principles, measuring the performance and adapting